Finally!
How are you doing?
It's the first time I've met you in person.
How's everything going?
Fantastic. Yeah.
Good week?
It's been a really good week. Yeah.
Good.
Very
busy?
busy.
That's great.
Yeah, very busy. So this is Sam.
Hi Sam, how are you? Nice to meet you, Melissa.
And this is Sean. Welcome back to Brave Ideas, where we chat with the leaders in commercial real estate to answer all questions space as a service and help office real estate reposition to meet the evolving demand from the future of work. This podcast is for anyone involved in commercial real estate in any way. If you're an investor, fund manager, developer, landlord, operator, property manager, agent, or broker, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you prefer to watch the full episode and join our newsletter, head over to braveideas.media. I'm your host, Caleb Parker, and this is another episode from NIPM featuring my friend, Melissa Ansley. Melissa is head of JLL Flex Solutions and Partnerships, where she leads the global strategy for JLL's Flex platform. With over 17 years of experience in flexible workplace, Melissa works with occupiers, operators, and landlords to develop flex portfolios, partnerships, and account strategies across JLL's global client base. As every episode this season, joining me to kick off this episode is my friend Sam Gamble, co-founder of Return Suite, our headline sponsor this season. Sam, this conversation with Melissa, first of all, I was excited to finally meet her for the first time, but our conversation really captured where I believe that the flex sector is heading. She's been on the ground for years advising both occupiers and landlords, and you can tell she's got her finger on the pulse.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun too to run into another Canadian in Cannes, so it was good. One of the biggest takeaways for me was her perspective on kind of how occupier demand has fundamentally shifted. I'm always kind of looking on the supply side, like financing and kind of the money that's earned, but of course it all comes from occupiers renting space, and just the point that she was making was that, flex is no longer a last resort or a small team solution, and it's becoming a core part of major corporate portfolios. So that's great.
It is great. And not surprising, what stood out was how much emphasis she put on hospitality and service. I think for many corporate clients, flexibility used to mean compromising on quality. But now the expectation is the bar's risen. It's flex spaces have to deliver the same standards as traditional HQs for their customer, which is, their team. And so high-end fit outs, acoustic privacy, technology infrastructure, all of that elevated service level, everything has to be sorted out very neatly.
Yeah, right. And it's driving this kind of flight to quality even within flex. Occupiers want brand alignment, consistency of experience across locations, and a partnership type approach from their providers, not just some kind of transactional standard landlord-tenant dynamic when it comes to flex.
Yeah, and I think it puts an onus on brokers, but also the corporate clients when they're looking at procuring space and getting that brand consistency. It's what their brand is for their own company. So you can't have one market that's got really high-end, amazing amenity flex location for your team and then go to another market where it's kind of a mid-market or low value. So it's got to keep that consistent. So, but then thinking about the landlords, I thought her example of the Lever House deal that she mentioned was really interesting. These hybrid structures where you got a landlord and occupier and a flex operator partnering together. I think we're going to see more of these three-party transactions emerge. Dave Cairns mentioned this many years back, but allows the enterprise customers to de-risk headcount fluctuations while still accessing a premium space.
And that leads into where landlords are going now. Melissa sees management agreements becoming much more common, particularly in the big markets like London and Madrid, where both landlords and operators are maturing in how they collaborate. There's just so many options now. And JLL is playing a central role advising both sides on how to structure these types of deals.
Yeah, personally, I've been digging into the structuring situation. I think management agreements I've been a big fan of. I've been also rethinking them lately, but we won't get into that on this episode. But I think longer term, Melissa talks about consolidation in the industry. We just witnessed the CBRE Industrious deal at the beginning of the year, and that's one example. But she thinks there's still room for more global brands to scale and for the cross-border players to enter new markets, bringing more sophistication, hospitality-first approach into Europe and across Europe.
Yeah, and it's clear that flex is no longer this kind of niche alternative. And that's been something I've been talking about a bit, kind of when it comes to kind of valuations or appraisals, like that flex should be considered within the universe of highest and best use and be considered in the valuation system, because it's becoming an institutional product now. And operators that don't kind of elevate their brand service levels, have a partnership model and a partnership approach, are really at risk of being left behind.
I think so. And it's good to hear from Melissa being sort of the voice of the customer for our audience of landlords, operators, and fund managers and investors out there. This episode, I think, really spells out what it takes to stay competitive for the customer as flex becomes a permanent part of office buildings.
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
Sam, we reverse roles there. I was supposed to say that. Here we go. Let's kick it. Melissa.
Hello.
Great to finally meet you in person here in Cannes, France, close to your home. And so I flew all the way here just to finally get on a podcast with you.
Just to see me.
And nipple.
Well, things that you need to see, right?
Exactly. We've been talking for, I feel like, over a decade, if not longer, all things flex. And I wanted to finally make it official, especially with your new role coming up here that we've been talking about, which we'll get into in a moment. But I guess first, you and I have some things in common. We overlapped back in the IWG days. Post IWG, you went to Instant.
I was at Instant for quite a while, representing occupiers going into flex spaces around the world. So loads of experience with various operators and clients, just representing them, building flexible space strategies within their portfolios, and just really sort of working with all operators around the globe.
Awesome. And then you went out and launched your own business.
My good friend Melissa Shiloh, we launched our own business called Workspace Concierge. I believe she's actually picked that back up again, which is fantastic. Where we worked again with occupiers going into flex spaces. That's what I really focused in on. But then also working with landlords, developing their own flex proposition or helping flex providers understand how do they level up their current proposition and bring that hospitality aspect to it. And, she's a force within the industry, and, definitely she's still doing it, which is great.
Awesome. Yeah. And so tell me, how did you, because we sort of lost touch a little bit there, and the next thing I know you're, at JLL, and so you went from Workspace Concierge to JLL.
Yeah.
What transpired?
So when we came over to JLL, I came in to actually move back to the US to head up their flex advisory for occupiers. But then COVID actually hit, and I was able to stay in Europe and then progress sort of within my relationships here within the business. And they offered me the position to run Flex for Europe from an occupier perspective, and now rolling into more of this broader range role for partnerships within the Flex industry and helping develop our Flex platform even further.
So I want to dive deep into that in a moment, but you mentioned the word hospitality.
Yeah.
And considering your experience working with customers, how is the demand from customers changed over the years, in your opinion?
Oh gosh, I think we've seen first of all, you and I speak the same language when we talk about hospitality and amenities. We've been saying this for years, right? So I think there's probably two main aspects, and in each different one, there's sub points or sub aspects I would say would fit into that. So first and foremost, clients, of course, are looking for agility and maximum value within their portfolio, right? But they don't want to compromise on the space and the value of the workspace for that agility and that value. So that brings in that flight to quality, which is the second aspect. So flight to quality in terms of, what are your workplace standards, the amenities that you have, the service levels that you have. These are all really important to flexible space occupiers right now. And they're wanting to create a portion of their portfolio that will bring maximum value, but then also have those, incredible experiences for their internal clients, right? And their teams on the ground that are not compromising because they're in a flexible space environment. So again, thinking about the builds that they have, the soundproofing, the technology, all of those aspects that they can get in their own traditional space and bring it to more of a flexible space environment.
And what's different that today? Were they not needing that in the past? Or is it just that they're using more flex space now?
No, I think that in the past, flex was really seen as almost a necessary evil, right? It was really seen as a bucket of, you have maybe 10 people or less, small team sizes and so on, and you had to compromise for that, right? You're like, oh, okay, that's fine. We have this group over here, and we maybe need to test the market out. And that's still the case now, testing the market. But that quality was not necessarily needed or so important. So when we bring people back to the office, no matter if it's a traditional space or a flex space, the quality is so extremely important, and that hospitality really brings, an extra element to that. And I would say, and I would argue even too, the quality of the actual physical space is really important, but the quality and the experience that you get with the flexible space provider and their service teams is so important as well. Occupiers now want to align with operators that have that same type of quality and ethos effectively and workspace standards, but also the service levels, right? How do we make things simple for them to acquire new spaces? And if you have issues, is it simple to work with that operator to handle those issues, right? These are the biggest things that we sort of talk about on a day-to-day basis, and problems that come to me. How do we solve for, these situations?
Are your customers, are they coming to you mentioning brand names, saying, I want to go to this brand? Is brand anywhere in the conversation?
I think brand is important. Definitely brand is important. And we are seeing a lot of clients that want to have, align to a preferred brand, right? And I think it's inevitable, right? As we start to see, a number of companies expand into Europe, coming from Asia, coming from North America, they want to really have that sort of, they know that what that experience is like, and they're very happy to go along with that. But more and more, I see occupiers thinking, actually, we can go far beyond just like a single brand, because that's what we always have done. They want to go best in class in the market, who's going to align to their internal clients' needs, and how is that going to support them to look, good from an occupier standpoint.
Yeah, I had this conversation with Dave Cairns when he was at CBRE Canada several years ago, and we had he had this deal that he was never could make it happen, but the occupier that he was working for, the office customer, they wanted to take a lot of space in a landlord, but they had some uncertainty on how much they would grow. So they wanted to take a flex operator with them.
Oh, I love that.
And do a deal some way that was like this 3-party deal.
Yeah.
And the landlord couldn't make it work for whatever reasons. Do you see that happening going forward?
Oh, I hope it happens. We're seeing it more and more, right? So if you look at even Industrious with the Lever House in the US, that's a phenomenal.
Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean? I don't know about Lever House.
So Industrious, of course, we all know Industrious, and they've gone in to work with CBRE, as we know, but this was before the CBRE acquisition, CBRE financial headquarters. So they've gone into Lever House, and CBRE has taken X amount of space, and they brought in Industrious to say, we'll take this space here, you take this extra space on a management agreement effectively, and then we can go into that location or floor if we need to. Otherwise, we're able to monetize the extra space with Industrious.
Well, actually, there was a similar example you just reminded me of WeWork, and I believe it was Amazon and Deloitte up in Manchester.
Okay.
Almost exactly the same. I think Amazon had the space. Deloitte wanted to come in for a piece of it. They did a partnership with WeWork. WeWork came in. Anyways, so great. There's 2 examples now. Yeah,
and the EY in Oslo with IWG, actually. So I think, personally, if we could, this is really interesting to me, if we can start to see more and more deals like this. I think this is where that value proposition for occupiers starts to come in. And there's still an element of education that we need to expand outside of our flexible space world and bring it to sort of, the landlords and other people outside, brokerage firms and so on, to understand the various types of products within the flexible space world, but then how you can leverage that to their advantage and make these like great, deals and transactions, right?
Well, we are seeing landlords I wouldn't call it embrace flex, but landlords are leaning into flex now, whether it's partnering with operators, as Andrew Dunn said at Brookfield, through hybrid leases, as other operators and landlords are teaming up on management agreements. And then you've got some landlords that are building out their own flex products, GPE in London, British Land, etc. But it may be leaning into JLL and what you're going to be doing. How do you see this going? Are we going to see more management agreements? We're going to see more landlords starting their own, or are we going to see consolidation amongst the operator brands?
So a couple of things there. So a management agreement, for sure. I think that we'll start to see that's the trend moving forward. Obviously, it's going to vary market to market, and there's going to be uptake in various markets sooner than others. So, for instance, obviously, like London is seeing a lot of progression with management agreements. It's still a process of education, effectively, to understand what is the value, who are the landlords that would be able to do management agreements, and then what are maybe those compromises with a management agreement, hybrid agreements, and so on. In Spain, we're seeing one of my counterparts, Teresa, who's over there. I think you know Teresa Siscar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Teresa.
Okay.
So she's doing a lot of phenomenal work with landlords as well and flex operators. They're really starting to try to understand what a management agreement is. How do they incorporate that into their new acquisitions and expansions? And then, she's spending a lot of time doing advisory work in that regard. So I think that will start to be more prevalent across the board. But again, will vary market to market. Consolidation in the flex world, I think this year, next year, we're going to see a lot of exciting things happen in consolidation.
Sounds like you might know something.
Don't know anything with that, but I do think that there are going to be some, it's interesting. I think with CBRE and Industrious, that was a huge stamp in the market, right? Like it was a check mark for flex. It was really exciting. It was really, a great, I think, stamp of approval to say flex is relevant and it is something that's really important to the real estate world, right? So I do think that we'll probably start to see more consolidations, companies coming together, and we'll see probably even more companies coming into Europe, making their way in. The Work Project coming into London, an Asian company, which they're phenomenal when you talk about hospitality, talk about amenities. I mean, they're incredible. So I think we'll start to see some really great propositions coming into the marketplace that, from my point of view, occupiers and landlords and everyone can really start to take advantage of.
If you're a landlord, operator, or investor without a big team or expensive tools, this is for you. Did you know you don't have to be a freak in the sheets to compete with the REITs? I'm talking about spreadsheets. You know how painful it is. Long builds, fragile formulas, missing assumptions. And even when it's finally working, you still wonder if you can trust it, let alone present it with confidence to investors and lenders. Return Suite changes all of that. Save hours or even days. Its intuitive interface lets you model a property's cash flow in minutes with no Excel mastery required. Model with precision, enter actual rent, CapEx, debt, lease roll schedules, and much more. Build trust by collaborating in real time, upload operating cash flows, and generate polished, transparent reporting dashboards for any stakeholder. With Return Suite, you're in control. Every assumption is fully traceable, nothing breaks under real-world complexity. And drumroll for my brave audience, they're building a flex space module too. Head over to returnsuite.com/brave to start modeling better deals today.
And with this new role, what is the official title?
Oh, the official title is Head of Flex and Partnerships. I think we're still probably trying to figure out what the official title is, but that's generally the scope.
And you're going to be continuing working with corporate occupiers and office customers. But you're also going to be supporting, or you're going to be overseeing and helping support landlord partnerships as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that the real basis of my position is to build upon JLL's flexible space platform, right? So continuing to work really closely with our corporate occupiers and our work dynamic teams. I'm always that connector between our corporate teams and our market teams to make sure that, everyone understands flex. How do we incorporate that into our offering? How do we incorporate that into their wider real estate strategies? If that's even at a portfolio level, metro level, or even just a, asset level, right? So those are those aspects. But then also working with landlords as well and forming even more partnerships with flexible space operators. So really helping identify, who are the best operators to go into different assets? How do they partner? How do they develop these management agreements? And bringing the expertise that JLL has and showcasing that to the market. We want to get out there to really show everyone that, we have a great offering and we have an incredible team behind us that has such expertise.
Well, for a long time, I've been saying that and everything that we believe in is about flex in co-working and all the programming and hospitality goes along with that, complementing leasing strategies in a building for a landlord. And I like what you're saying. You're going to help. First of all, I like the fact that some customers are matching up with the right brands is important, but also landlords matching up with the right brands is important.
Yeah.
And actually, I want to probably bring in Sam for this question here in a second.
So I'm really curious. I mean, when you guys are advising landlords, you have so many different kind of value propositions and brands and hybrid agreements, management agreements, lease agreements. How do you guys think about, how do you approach like making sure that you're kind of comparing apples to apples for landlords when you're looking at different operators?
Well, first of all, I would probably start by saying that we have a really great team, and not to sell JLL by anything, but we do have phenomenal tenant rep team and capital markets team as well, right? So they have amazing relationships. I think what we would do and how we do this with our landlords is understanding their proposition, understanding what they need to create an ecosystem within their building effectively. And because of our relationships with flexible space landlord or flexible space providers, we are really able to say, okay, let's put an RFP out. Let's identify the various operators that we know would align to a building or a portfolio and bring that to them. I think that there's some nuances that we would actually have to take a look at and really, work towards understanding the landlord is, do they want to have a management agreement, right? This is tricky sometimes. Management agreements, not everyone loves, right? We need to think about what are some creative ways to help them overcome that initial risk that they would have. Is that a portion of rent? Is that, a capital expense that you're putting in? A good example is COBA. I don't know if you know Paul, who runs COBA. What he really looks for are landlords and buildings that have, great sustainability aspect to it. So it's really understanding, I think, just baseline what everyone wants effectively, and then, how we're able to align them. Typically, when we look at, an investor proposition, right? We would do a market analysis, effectively, see what the demand is, what the market's calling for, what our occupiers looking for. And then we would be able to assess the different brands that they have and then put together different scenarios, right? Best case, middle case, worst case scenario of what that would look like from each different operator that we've potentially shortlisted, and understanding what are their sort of objectives and their ethos going forward to then hit those numbers that they put out. So again, it's almost that brand recognition, what they can bring to the table and the experience that they have, the stability.
I mean, I think it's been really good to have this conversation. Obviously, you've been on the ground with customers for so long. Just looking ahead though, and we've touched on some of it, but what would you say landlords or investors in office assets, they need to be really focusing on now and doubling down on?
I really think an exciting proposition is the managed solution, right? So we're seeing obviously bringing flex into their buildings and assets and portfolios, but also bringing an element of those spec suites as well is going to be really interesting going forward. And then, of course, that hospitality. I mean, I know that probably this could get boring to your viewers and to your listeners, but having that aspect of hospitality and really doubling down on the service levels that they have within their buildings and their portfolio is extremely important.
So can you actually dive deeper on the hospitality? What does hospitality mean to you?
So it's amenities, right? And it's not, again, going back to that service level, it's not just amenities or wellness rooms and all of those things. It's combining various service levels and technology, these things that simplify an occupier's life and want to bring them back to the office. So I think you need to actually have a purpose for people to come back into. probably being in London, you guys take advantage of all the amazing buildings that are already there and have a lot of these great amenities already. But to me, this is, having almost an experience to go back into the office, right? And I personally think it's far beyond like a free lunch and donuts and coffee and all that kind of stuff. I think you need to have, an element of technology again, and making life easier for clients to come in and really feel like they have a reason to be in the office and they can almost do everything in that one spot, right? So have a gym facility, have the wellness rooms, of course, like I said, it's not just about that, but then, all of the different levels of concierge service. How do you bring and elevate that experience within a single asset?
One of the conversations I had this week, I hope I get the phrase right, but Badir from Paragon Developments, he's based in Cairo.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how we talk about the future of work. We need to be talking about the future of being.
Yeah.
It's just because work has transcended the office.
Yeah.
And so if we're creating workplaces, we need to be thinking beyond the actual work.
Yeah.
And we call it Brave, we call it lifestyle work. And because, even this week we've had coffee meetings, rosé meetings, lunch meetings, and that's work. So does a building, when you talk about hospitality, does the building need to have lots of food and beverage and opportunities for people to socialize?
Yeah.
Social, I don't want to call it social working, but
space, right? And it's the different types of environments. And I think that's one of the things throughout the years, actually, it's giving people an opportunity to have different ways of working and in different environments, right? So in some areas, you want to have your heads down work, right? You need to be able to go and make those calls that you have to be able to concentrate. I work from home a lot of the time, and I get to travel, obviously, to our offices all over the place and then go to flex locations as well. And I know that I have a very specific way of working because I need to have some time where I'm just heads down, concentrating, answering emails or having those conversations. But there's a huge value in having that social connection as well. And that, is so important to the productivity of a company to, create that sort of buzz within an atmosphere. There's nothing better than going into a busy building and feeling like this is incredible. This is incredible, right?
you get energy from it.
You get energy and you can
give energy to it.
Yeah, you learn from other people around you. And we took one of our clients actually through another client's space that was run by a flex operator. I can't say any names, unfortunately, but it felt like when we were walking through the space, the building was packed, right? And it was just literally a whole building that a client had worked with a flex operator to manage on their behalf. And one of our clients said, "Did you guys pay people to come in here?" Because, people were working sitting in offices, obviously down in their co-working desks. Some were sort of sitting on the floor, having these sort of casual conversations. And then there was a war room in the bottom of the space. And, it was all these new ideas that I think it gives you energy and it makes you want to come into the office rather than being in sort of that, back in the day, you're in sort of, you have to apply to a job and you have to be ready for a fast-paced environment, but you're sitting in a cubicle. That is no longer, right? So, and then having a building actually that can complement that actual workspace too makes it even better. Right.
Totally, and I think some might say they are getting paid to be in that office.
Yeah, exactly.
but what you're describing is that whole meme where they say you come to the office for the culture, and you've got the picture of the cubicle, and there's the culture.
It's fast-paced environment, ready for change. That's exactly what it is, and that was like my first experience coming into the, into the world of work out of university, and I just thought, oh God, this is what it's going to be. It's going to be dim and dark and sort of cubicles. But it does not have to be like that. And I don't think that we see that any longer, right? So even, I think the work project, their new location, it's all going to be external offices. And that's fantastic, right? Having that sort of natural light coming into the space, that's really important. So it's creating that, that atmosphere where you have different people having to be able to be productive in different ways.
Absolutely. It's experience, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I have one final question. Just as we think about future and how people are working from anywhere and working in the office, over the last 10 or 15 years, there's been different aggregator platforms like Mark Gilbert over in Liquid Space. Obviously DeskPass and Hubble just got acquired by Yardi.
Yeah.
You've got all these different aggregators. That product of working and booking by the day. 10 years ago, I said that CBRE, JLL, these guys will be having teams that are just booking reservations like travel agents.
Yeah.
What's going to happen in that world?
Well, first of all, I love this world. JLL invested in Dasana a couple of years ago, and I love that team. Michael is phenomenal. His whole team, they're so great. I think it's really important. I think I've been saying this for quite some time. Well, ever since I started with JLL and I really formed that relationship with Dasana. And of course we worked closely with Liquid Space and DeskPass and so on. But I think that it is really important. I think it's part of that value proposition, right? So when I talk about clients wanting agility and wanting maximum value from the portfolio, it's integrating all of the various types of flexible space product within it, right? So how does that solve a certain subset within an occupier's portfolio? And I think it's really important. I think that clients are more and more, once they understand the value add of that and how it works within a wider strategy, that will become more and more prevalent, I think, because they started off seeing it as, a need for on-demand distributed teams. And it's rapidly, over the last even 2 years, evolved to, managing those peak demand times and using it for experimentation going into new markets. And that's really important to a client, I think. And I love it. I just think that it's going to grow more and more. And I think that it will be a value proposition even for landlords to integrate them into their overall offering, right?
Absolutely. When we opened up the exchange at 22 Bishopsgate, initially a third of our revenue came from day pass bookings through the platform. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So maybe this is how we reached the 30% the stat that JLL came out with several years ago.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, look, to me, it's about education. To reach that stat is to, educate more and more, get outside of our little world of flexible space. People, we talk to each other all of the time. It's not a little world. I shouldn't say that. It's a big world, but let's expand it, talking to landlords, talking to various operators, doing these amazing deals that we were talking about before, sort of those tripartite agreements, right? And using all the different technologies, new products on the market, and really sort of growing the space.
Well, I'm excited for the future of Flex. Obviously, I'm betting my life on it right now.
I know. Yeah, me too. I have been for a very long time.
It's been a fun journey. Finally, great to meet you.
So lovely to meet you.
High five.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, take care of yourself.
If you've enjoyed this episode, you'll enjoy our Brave Ideas newsletter. Subscribe today by tapping on the link in the show notes. And don't forget, I'm always on the lookout for buildings to acquire and reposition with brand-led hospitality. If you know a building I should look at or an owner looking to sell or partner with, drop me a DM or contact us at bravecorp.co. That's bravecorp, BRAVECORPO.co. Until next time, take care of yourself.